Hi everyone, we're just going to walk through the woods. This of course is Daniel Gregg here, and I'll be reading my presentation here, maybe throwing in a few extra comments in on the side too. But let's turn the camera around here. It's a nice day today. So here we go. I was asked a question concerning 1 Corinthians 15:24. So I will frame the question in the most oppositional way I can think of, even though the person asking the question did not frame it so, and is actually seeking to know, this person's actually seeking to know the answer to a heretical use of this text. So here it goes. So I'm going to quote to you from the King James Version here. Then cometh the end, when he shall have delivered up the kingdom to God, even the Father, when he shall have put down all rule and authority. And then verse 25. For he must reign till he hath put all enemies under his feet. So thus reads the King James Version. How then does this text not imply that Messiah Yeshua hands over the kingdom to God so that his reign ends? And also imply to God hands it over because he is not God? Well, in the King James, and divorced from the larger context of Scripture, these implications are suggested by the text. We should admit this. I will deal with the implication of the versions shortly, but first, to show that it is wrong. In Luke 1:33, it says, and I think I'm going to look that passage up here. So since we're in the woods, we're going to have to find a way to look it up here without getting too close to the ground here. At least the wind is not blowing too much. Let's see, Luke. There's Luke. All right. 1. $33. I'll turn the camera around here. Alright, so you can pause the video at this point and read it for yourself if you would like. This is what the good news of Messiah says. Then he will reign over the house of Yaakov for all the ages, and of his kingdom there will be no end. So that's Luke 1:33. Of his kingdom there will be no end. Then he will reign over the house of Yaakov for all the ages, and of his kingdom there will be no end. This is the reading of the good news of Messiah and the substance of the other versions. I will also cite Isaiah 9:6-7, and I'll read this to you. For a child will have been made to be born to us. A son will have been given to us. Then the dominion will be on his shoulder. And then, we got to flip over to page 2 here. Then his name will be called Wonderful, Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. To the increase of the dominion and to peace is no boundary, and upon the throne of David and over his kingdom, for establishing it and for sustaining it with justice and righteousness, from the then, now, and onward the age. The zeal of Yahweh of hosts will do this. Isaiah 9:6-7. Now notice that this text shoots down both implications. There is no boundary, or we could translate the words no limit, no end to his dominion. There is no end. Ein Kates in Hebrew. He is also called El Gibor, Hebrew for mighty God. We can also see in Revelation 11:15, and I will read you this from the Good News of Messiah. The kingdom of this world has become the kingdom of our Adonai and his anointed, and he will reign for all the ages of the ages. And also Revelation 22:1. Then he showed me a river of the water of life, clear as crystal, coming from the throne of the Almighty, even of the Lamb. And some translations say, and the Lamb, but it's clear that it's the Lamb's throne as well. So now let us return to the King James and its implications and the history of it. Oh, I see some nice ferns here. And ferns here in the wood. Okay, so contrary to what you may have been told, the theology of the Most High in the translations, page 3, over to page 3, is not entirely correct. It is almost correct. What happened is that there was a large faction in the church that denied the divinity of Messiah, called Arianism, or the Arian faction. The more orthodox faction responded with the Trinity doctrine. But in their zeal to respond to Arianism, they did not sufficiently question all the Arian corruptions and assumed some of the Arian positions. Surprise, surprise. Positions such as the begotten nature of Messiah, which the more orthodox party tried to correct at Nicaea, with the qualification begotten before all the ages. So they assumed the assumption that monogenes meant only begotten when it means only kindred. And so then they taking that assumption, they corrected the anti-deity implications by saying begotten before all ages. The Orthodox party also adopted the one being position versus the Arian one person position, when in reality Scripture teaches neither. Rather, the union of the Almighty is relational, based on love, faithfulness, and a common divine nature. I will not at this time delve into this. I am laying out the history for a backdrop here, just telling you what the controversy was. The upshot is that both Arianism and the more orthodox party have inserted their errors into the text, and both parties seemingly are unable to defeat the proof text of the others. And I know this for a case because whenever I've taken up any part in these debates, the Trinitarian people have a standard way of defending everything because they want to nuance it the way they want to, and as a result, their arguments are often weaker than they really need to be, based on just the Scripture, because they're following the traditional way of defending the deity of Yeshua. All right, so that was aside. All I can say is, okay, so the Orthodox party does have an advantage. All I can say is the Orthodox party has the overall context for them, but the devil is in the details. And for some of these, their solutions are badly lacking for want of more precise knowledge. All right. Page 4. And that has to do with repairing 1 Corinthians 15:24 through 25. 2. to legitimately dispense with the implications previously mentioned. Indeed, the whole passage down to verse 28 has problems, but I will not cover the rest in this video, as it would be tedious and long. I will just hit the points important for verses 24 and 25. In the good news of Messiah, I have translated, "Then is the ending, when he may be restoring the kingdom for the Almighty, that is the Father, when he shall have destroyed all contrary rule and all authority and power. For it is necessary for him to be judging as king until he may have set all his enemies under his feet." So let's look that up here. Somewhat dry spot here. Flick that kicking bug off the top there of the cover. And we will go over to 1 Corinthians 15. Here we go. Let's see. We'll start right on this side of the page here. Well, there toward the bottom, almost where the footnotes start, that's where our text starts. Then is the ending, when he may be, skip to the top of the next page. I think it's trying to focus on that. There we go. Then when he may be restoring the kingdom for the Almighty, that is the Father, when he shall have destroyed all contrary rule and all authority and power. For it is necessary for him to be judging as king until he may have set all his enemies under his feet. Okay, so that's the good news in Messiah translation of that passage. Okay, so let's get our papers back up here. Flick that bug off. Okay, so instead of shall have delivered up, I have put when he may be restoring the kingdom for the Almighty. The King James uses the future perfect, but Paul's Greek is present subjunctive. Subjunctive is it's a mood like may or can, so that's why may is in the translation. May be restoring the kingdom. Okay, so that was an aside. Okay, so but Paul's Greek is present subjunctive. This requires a durative translation, present tense. Thus, the ed should be ing. Furthermore, talking about the word delivered here, furthermore, paradidome means to put or place alongside. The idea is not that of handing over or giving up the kingdom, but that of bringing it under the dominion of the Almighty. So I have cut through the mental fog using a dynamic translation here, quote, restoring the kingdom for the Almighty. Next page, page 5. Also, the dative I have rendered for the Almighty, instead of to God, for the Almighty, rather than to the Almighty. This, I believe, is sufficient to mute the Arian influence over this text, because the point is not a transfer of the kingdom from Son to Father, but it is the Son delivering the kingdom for the Father. And Messiah is the only kindred Son, being of like divine nature to the Father. All judgment is assigned to the Son, and so it is he who delivers the kingdom for the Almighty. That is, the Father. And then the Son remains on the throne. So now on to verse 25, as the King James Version has it. He must reign till, which clearly implies an end to his reign. Why the Orthodox party has not or cannot repair this, I do not know, but repair it we must. The verb is a present infinitive, basileoin, probably crucified the pronunciation, but that comes from studying Greek out of a book rather than going to Greece and hearing how it's pronounced. And we can fix the problem by using the root king rather than reign. Thus, to be kinging, or to be acting or judging as king. This is the same as a general generaling. A general is always a general, but not always generaling, i.e. fighting a war. A king is always king, but not always kinging. Thus, the notion is congruent to the context. So, Messiah, or the Almighty, is kinging when he needs to be kinging, when there are enemies to be put down, and he's kinging until they are put down. But after the enemies are put down, he is still king, but he does not need to be kinging anymore. In the same way, we would use the word general. And we have to realize that with the more limited vocabulary and experience of people in ancient times, they were more willing to impart larger ranges of meanings to words. So we have to keep that in mind. To summarize, he puts the kingdom alongside the Father, and he judges as king. So hopefully the camera doesn't cut off on us. Until all enemies are defeated. He does not cease being king, and he does not give up the kingdom because the only kindred son shares joint rule with the Father. The concept of joint rule or co-regency is a well-established practice in Scripture chronology. The main difference here is the Father and Son share joint rule forever in a kingdom that will never end. Thank you for listening.